Here we are at our final video where we will be talking about the 3 energy systems. Thank you for hanging with me here. Sorry that the last one was a bit long. So why is it that you've always heard that you need to exercise in the fat burning zone? The lowest intensity of exercise is where you should work out because you'll be burning fat. That is something that has been talked about for decades and decades. However, I would strongly contest that and say that research shows the potential for losing weight is greater if exercise is performed at a higher intensity for even maybe a smaller amount of time than the long and slow. So the total number of calories burned is more important than the percentage or the mixture of macronutrients used for weight control. So rather than trying to do long and slow and doing these very, very long workouts at a slow intensity so that you can get into the fat burning zone, I would argue that research shows that a shorter workout that is done at a higher intensity can essentially utilize the same amount of calories, which in the end is going to give you more bang for your buck. So there are 3 energy systems, and so our body is essentially getting energy from carbohydrates, fats, and proteins if necessary, which are going to be taking place during a combination of these systems. It's very rare that we're in just the first one or just the second one. We're mostly in the third one, in the oxidative system. And so we're going to quickly go over these systems. Again, this is going to be a very, very brief introduction to the energy systems. So our first initial phase is going to be the creatine phosphate, or the PCR energy system. This is our immediate energy system, what our body goes to right away. Say that we're sitting down and then we rush to the bathroom or something like that. It dictates our ability to initiate that rapid high-intensity activity. And so people who compete in the 100-meter sprint, or who do heavy lifting, who do jump roping, who run to the bathroom, it's not requiring oxygen to operate. This is a 3 to 15 second type of movement, which is going to use ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is the currency, energy currency of life. Our ATP stores are very limited. So training our ATP PCR, however you want to call it, system. If the activity is going to go for more than 10 to 15 seconds, then we're relying on other systems to produce the ATP, to produce our energy, and then these stores are replenished after around 2 minutes of rest, which is why when doing certain weight lifting programs, they will very specifically say in between the set you need to rest for 2 to 3 minutes, you need to rest for 3 to 5 minutes. And that is not just to give your body time to recover, but also to replenish our energy currency of ATP. So if you're working on power endurance and you're doing sessions involving 10 to 15 seconds of max intensity, remember that you need to have those 2 minutes of rest between repeats to allow your system to replenish. Without adequate rest, your power is going to decrease significantly. So for example, if you were training to increase your explosive leaping ability for basketball or for anything, and you're trying to jump as high as you can, so you probably will notice after 2 or 3 jumps that your next leap is not going to get you the same height. So then you would need to stop and rest because your ATP system is depleted. If you are continuing, though, to do your max height without rest, then you're just working on endurance and you're not doing power training, if your goal is to work on explosive leaping power. So then the next system is the anaerobic system, which is the glycolytic energy system. This is a system that is longer than that 15-second duration, but is shorter than around 2 to 3 minutes. So this would supply energy if you were doing a 400-meter dash running, if you were doing a 100-meter dash in swimming, maybe a game of football. So you've got one play that's going to be around 1 to 2 minutes at most. And this is the system that is glycolysis. It's also known as your lactic acid system. I want to quickly talk about lactic acid, just because there are a lot of rumors going around about it, misinformation, so a bit of science for you. So during muscle activity, the store of ATP needs to constantly be replenished. When the supply of oxygen is sufficient, this energy comes from feeding the pyruvate, one product of glycolysis, into the Krebs cycle. So maybe you remember from a basic chemistry class about the Krebs cycle. So when the oxygen supply is insufficient, typically during an intense muscular activity, so if you've ever sprinted in the 400-meter dash and you come around that final curve and you're right at the 300 and you feel your body just go, oh no, and you kind of feel like you're going to throw up and your butt cheeks have clenched and you're just forcing yourself there, so you have an inadequate amount of oxygen. During this intense muscular activity, energy must be released through the anaerobic metabolism, which is where the lactic acid fermentation is converting pyruvate to lactate, and then that's when the Cori cycle begins. So basically, what I want you to come away with this is that lactic acid is completely washed out of our muscles within 30 to 60 minutes after we finish our activity, our high-intensity activity. So since muscle soreness doesn't show up until 24 to 36 hours later, our muscle soreness is not the result of lactic acid buildup, like it's commonly talked about. Instead, our post-exercise muscle soreness is actually and usually caused by simple mechanical damages, tiny muscle fibers, free radical damage, and inflammation. So just a little FYI about lactic acid buildup. So then our third energy system is the oxidative energy system, the aerobic energy system, which is what we are in most of the time. It's our long duration energy system, anything that's about 5 minutes or more. It's the oxidation of fat. Triglycerides fat is the major energy source, which is going to be used. This is prolonged exercises relying on the breakdown of fat and carbohydrates at the beginning. And so if we were to run 1 kilometer, which is a little more than half of a mile, the system is providing around half of our energy. If we were to continue our run and run a marathon, it's providing almost all of your energy. So considering our efficiency in exercise programs, remember that it's the total number of calories that we're spending, not necessarily the type of calorie that we are burning. So recovery, we talked about this a bit in the last one, EPOC, exercise post-energy consumption. So our recovery metabolism continues to go after our exercise is done. So say that we did a low to moderate type of cardiovascular movement, we're going to have a very fast recovery. So our body is going to get back to its original metabolism, metabolic state quite quickly. Say that we do some high intensity training, it's going to be a much slower recovery, and our metabolism continues to be stimulated for several hours or more. And again, then remember the increase in muscle. So if you have a higher percentage of muscle mass, you're more metabolically active than fat, and so you're going to then also have a higher BMR. So here's a very generic chart showing you low intensity uses some glucose at the beginning, uses some fat. High intensity uses glucose at the beginning and uses more fat. So the higher the intensity of your workout, generally the more calories that you're going to come away having burned. So what is aerobic exercise? So it is a movement where you're able to meet the demands of oxygen that is needed. It's going to help the oxygen flow through your body. It's going to help increase your heart rate. It's going to deliver oxygen all throughout your muscles. It's going to carry away that waste products better. It's going to help you to feel better. So common aerobic exercises would be walking, jogging, swimming, you're biking, things like that. Things that we do fairly regularly. Why are aerobic exercises good? So there's a ton of reasons, right? It helps us to stay sharper in our mind. It helps us to feel better. It helps to decrease some of that bad cholesterol. It helps to increase our heart as a muscle, remember, a stronger heart. It helps to decrease or prevent some chronic conditions, health conditions. It helps our immune system to be better. It helps our endurance level to be better. As you notice, I'm going backward. And then also it helps us physically as far as our muscle to fat ratio. Our next type would be anaerobic exercises, which means that our body is doing something very quickly. without oxygen, and so the this occurs when exercise is of such an intensity that the demand for oxygen is not able to be met, and so a brief high intensity sprint, it's going to be types of movements that are going to be helping us to build power, to build muscle, so weight training. A fartlek, this is a European word of some sort, I don't know which country, but it means speed play. So you're exceeding your anaerobic threshold for a short amount of time, and then you go back down, and so maybe a sprint for 30 seconds, jog for 2 to 3 minutes, a sprint for 45 seconds, jog for 2 to 3 minutes, and then you continue with that speed play. Very similar then to interval training. So remember again, you've got your high intensity, your low intensity, a mix of the two so that you can go for a bit longer to get your fire going for a while. If you really love walking, walk slowly, then power walk. Walk slowly, then power walk. What are some things that you enjoy doing that you could add a bit more intensity to? Okay, high intensity interval training. So what would be the difference between sprinting and jogging? So if we are sprinting at such an intense level, our body develops this oxygen deficiency, has to work harder then to meet the demands. Our metabolism stays raised. I've read a ton of studies. I have my classes do a paper on the difference between high intensity interval training and moderate intensity interval training. And essentially the results are quite similar. However, those doing high intensity interval training need to work out for much less time. So if time is a restriction for you, go at a higher intensity for a shorter amount of time. So if you used to jog 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you know that you don't have that 10 hours, instead go to a place where you can do maybe the length of a soccer field at a higher intensity and walk back, higher intensity and walk back, so that your sprinting essentially is raising your metabolism and then continuing once you're done with that workout. So one of the most effective ways to burn a large number of calories while you're also helping your heart and your muscles, more bang for your buck, I've already said that, and any of the types of activities you do could have their intensity increased for a short amount of time. Let's finish here then with one final thought. Lifting weights. I wish that we were all together, that we could do a workout together. I think that lifting weights, whether it's your body weight or actual tangible weights or cans of soup or water bottles, doing some sort of load-bearing activity is so fantastic for our health. Why do people not want to lift weights? The most common reasons is fear of injury, fear of looking more masculine. I would say for some of my females, I don't want to look like a man. I don't want to lose my neck, or not having access to things. We all have a body, and our bodies weigh an amount of weight, so we could lift our bodies up and down if we don't have access to a gym. Benefits of lifting: increasing our strength, increasing our bones, decreasing our likelihood of having having osteoporosis, increasing your BMR. So many reasons that are beneficial when we are doing some sort of strength conditioning. So there are many different types of weight training. Some of you could train for endurance and toning. So maybe you want nice looking arms. Some of you could train for endurance and strength. You want to be able to do things for a long amount of time and to be stronger. Some of you want to be powerful. Some of you want to be powerful and explosive. Some of you want to gain weight with hypertrophy. You want to gain mass. And some of you just want to maintain what you've got. And so everybody who's lifting has a different idea. Some people lift and they lift for endurance. So they're doing an amount of weight that they can do 15 to 20 reps. Whereas those of you who are doing power or explosiveness, you're lifting a weight that is so heavy that you can maybe get 1 to 4 reps in it at most. And so our muscles are going to respond differently. We all have different body types, and you can choose different types of lifting to get these the benefits that it is that you're looking for. So all in all, I would encourage you to do something that you enjoy and to get up and to move.